What's up, guys? Back again, joined by a good friend Greg Gabriel. Got a couple minutes late start here. My computer decided to do an unscheduled restart and update literally 2 minutes before Greg joined. Welcome, Greg. How you doing today, my man?
I'm doing good. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. It's 2026, and we are in a new era of Bears football now. And
Yeah,
there's
and I'm a day and a half of being nice to Green Bay people.
anyone who done that. So Greg tweeted out his New Year's resolution this year is to be nice to Green Bay Packers fans. Anyone who doesn't follow Greg on Twitter, you're missing out. He has some colored, some spirited conversation with some Packers fans on there, but he's going to be nice to them this year. That's his New Year's resolution. So that's good to hear. And I have my over under on it lasting is about was about 2 weeks, and I want to say I'm going with the under because there's a good chance we're going to play the Packers in the playoffs next week, and if that happens, you know how it's going to go down.
Well, I put it this way: if I'll do like I usually do going into a Packer game, and I don't say much because
Yeah,
okay, but I do know that if Chicago did happen to lose, and I don't think that's going to happen. In fact, I'm almost 99.9% positive the Bears will win that game. That I will catch a boatload of flack from Green Bay people, which is fine with me.
yeah.
But I'm probably I'm 11 miles from the state line, and I might be the most hated guy in that state. But hey,
The most hated guy in Green Bay. Hey, that's an honor to call yourself the most hated guy in Green Bay. Uh, The Packers this week, they are going with I don't even remember the name of the quarterback they're starting. But Jordan Love is out, Malik Willis is out. They're starting their third string quarterback. So they're going to be going into the playoffs with Jordan
four
Love
losses in a row probably.
not having played football in almost a month.
Well,
So that's
since our game, so he missed. No, he got hurt. What in the first Bears game, right?
yeah, yep.
Yeah. So yeah, he's gonna be almost a month.
Oh no, wait. It was the second one, right? Wait.
Yeah, it was
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
second one.
Yeah, yeah. So what day was I'm gonna look up the schedule here. So that
So one,
was
two. This will be a second week he's not playing.
yep. So that was week 16. That was 12-20. So he's looking at about 2 weeks right now. Next week will be about 3 weeks without playing any live football. That's gonna be a tough ask for him to come back after missing that time and get back for the playoffs.
Yeah, but I mean he is a vet. He should be able to do it. It's similar concussion. Like any other injury, but he's there for meetings. He knows what the game plan is. He's out on the practice field. He just can't. In fact, he has been practicing, and I didn't see that he wasn't going to play. Would that come out today that he wasn't playing?
Yeah, I read that they said they're gonna rest or he's not starting this week. I think it's Clayton Tune or something they said is gonna be the starter. So
Well,
that's
whoever the heck that is, and they're playing Minnesota, and Minnesota's playing an undrafted rookie free agent. So it's going to be a preseason game, basically what we're going to see.
yeah, 100%. But it's a big week. Bears versus Lions. This is a rematch of the team that literally blew us out in week two. The biggest loss of the season by far was in that matchup against the Lions. This is Ben Johnson's former team. So I do think there's a lot to play for here, especially with the fact that the number two seed is on the line. And I've heard some Bears fans, some terrible accounts on Twitter, talking about how it doesn't matter the two seed or the three seed. To me,
Yeah,
it's
it
a big
does.
deal. Yeah, that's exactly how I feel. I think it's a big deal because you get that two seed, and you're the team that you're basically home field advantage against anyone except the number one seed. Where if you
Right,
go to that three seed, you could play one game at home and then go right back on the road for back to back
right. You
games.
can play. You can play with the two seed. You win the first game. You got another home game.
Yep. And if the one seed somehow doesn't advance to the NFC
That's right.
Championship, you have
You're
home
hosting the
field as well.
NFC Championship. It's a great position to be in, and not only that, you're literally playing. And people say, "Well, no, the NFC South teams are the weakest." No, it's not. Green Bay is the weakest team right now in the
They're
NFC
limping
playoffs.
into the playoffs. Yeah, they're limping into the
They
playoffs
are.
now.
They have lost. You probably knew this, but I'll say it anyway. They have lost 5 out of their last 9 games. They lose this week to Minnesota, it'll be 6 out of 10, and 4 in a row.
Yeah, and that's a team that after early in the year, there was a lot of people calling them Super Bowl favorites when they had control of the NFC North. They have since lost that, and a lot has changed now. The Bears have won the NFC North, and I think we need to focus on the Lions like we have. I think Ben Johnson does a good job of getting the guys ready. Have them go 1-0. 1-0 every week. This week you take out the Lions, you lock up that number 2 seed, and you head into the playoffs with a lot of confidence.
The only thing I wish from the concept of just potentially resting guys is that
Mhm.
it'd be a lot nicer if the Philadelphia game was a noon game Central Time instead of at the same time. Because
Yeah,
Philly's going to
and you
rest
know,
people against Washington, but it's the game's kickoff is at the same time as the Bears kickoff. So there's you're really not going to know you might know the outcome by the time you get to the fourth quarter, depending on what Washington is doing to Philly in that game. And that could give you an opportunity to rest people in the fourth quarter, whether you're winning or losing. I'd rather win the game. I'd want to go into the playoffs with a win under my belt, not a loss,
yep.
because then you'd have 2 straight losses. But that will be a decision for Ben to make probably sometime in the second half of this game on Sunday.
Yeah, it's I think I mean there's a couple scenarios here for people who don't know the full playoff scenario. If we win, we lock up the 2 seed and play the Packers. If the Eagles lose, we lock up the 2 seed and play the Packers. The only way we get that 3 seed is if we lose and the Eagles win. Both those games are going on at the same time. So Nick asked a good question here, and I do want to explain this a little bit. He says, "Do you want to face Green Bay a third time?" Now,
Darn right.
me, yeah, I'm 50-50 on. Now, here's the reason why I do. Because one, that means we're the number 2 seed. And that's where I want to be. I want to be that 2 seed. The Packers have already locked in the 7. They can't go up even if they win. They're the 7th seed. And the other reason, I think the other teams we could potentially play, it would be either the Seahawks, Rams, or 49ers.
Right. You're going
I
to
don't
play.
want to
You're going to
play
play. Yeah. You're going
not in the wild card round.
no. Now you're playing here, and that's an advantage. But you're still, they're a lot better football team than the Green Bay Packers.
Yeah, and I think
And I,
we've
and I get that Green Bay has owned Chicago for a long time, but if you look at the last 4 games over, and last year both games were very close. The Bears winning the one up in Green Bay. The Bears, if it wasn't for a block field goal, they win the game here a year ago. All these games have been very close. These teams are pretty close on paper, but you got to go between Ben Johnson and playing at home, which I think is going to be huge in the playoffs. You got to go with the Bears.
Yeah, you got to go. And I would have a big confidence that Ben Johnson will have these guys ready for the playoffs. If I was worried about something heading into the playoffs, it's obviously our defense. Our defense, while they lead the league in turnovers, and I feel like sometimes turnovers are just a luck based thing, but I feel like this team forces turnovers. They take the ball away from opposing offenses better than anyone in the NFL. And that's something that can have a little bit of continuity heading into the playoffs. They can continue doing that. And if they can, that could be the difference in a couple of these games. But playoff football is here. Speaking of playoff football, anyone not involved in college football, the playoffs round 2 just wrapped up. Was there anything you saw yesterday? Because there was some crazy stats heading into it. Now, Indiana broke the curse, but teams that have a first round bye in the playoffs in college football are now 1-7. That's a crazy stat to me. Do you see anything to that? The home field team, the top 4 seeds not really having an advantage. having that
Yeah,
long
yeah.
without playing.
You know, in college football, it hurts more so than pro football having a bye because college football, when you have a bye, you got almost a month off.
Yeah, I think they said it. It was I was when I was watching the Texas Tech game. They had went 27 days without playing a game, and during that time, the announcers let out a little tidbit of information. They did zero live tackling. To me, that's not
That's
how
on
you
the
prepare
coach.
yourself
That,
for a
that, that,
playoff game.
that's on the coach, and that's I didn't hear that part. Um,
He
but
said
to me,
he said he
that's
was focused on getting them healthy. So
yeah. Well, to me, that's poor coaching because you're getting away from the fundamentals of the game. You can lay off the last 10 days before the game or the last week before the game, but you got and especially for younger guys too. It's almost like having an extra spring practice session when you have bowl practice.
yeah, and
and,
I
and
mean,
it really can help, going into the next year. So I think the Texas Tech hasn't been a bowl team, for a while and a top contender forever. So, it's new to them. I never thought for a minute that they were going to win the game they were in. I just think that the Big 12 conference is extremely weak, has been weak for a long time, and that they didn't stand a chance. But the biggest disappointment, and maybe it's not a disappointment, maybe it's reality, the SEC is freaking terrible.
the SEC, hey, they're getting bounced around out of the playoffs a little bit. I mean, Alabama got beat, Georgia got beat by Ole Miss. Now, that's one thing I tweeted this out. I don't know if you saw it, but yesterday going into the day, I was excited to see the quarterbacks play. Now, as a Bears fan, I'm happy that we don't have to scout the quarterbacks anymore. We got our guy. Caleb Williams is the truth. But I still like to see what the next wave, what next year's crop of quarterbacks looks like. And it was Fernando Mendoza and Dante Moore that I was excited to see. But it was that third game, that Ole Miss game, Trinidad Chambliss. Some of his traits and skills, his ability to make plays and be a playmaker off script, I think some of that translates into the NFL, and I think he could potentially be a good player.
Yeah, but I think he needs another year, and he has another year.
Yeah.
And I had done him for one of the agents I do work for, and actually I did him twice. And I did him early when it was maybe a game or two into when he took over the starting position. He took it over because of injury, and he was not very good. Now, this guy, if people don't know his history, he played like at Grand Valley, last year. He was a Division II football player, but a very
Yeah.
athletic one. So huge jump going from Division II up to the
The
top,
FCC, yeah.
yeah,
Or
top of the
FCS.
ladder SEC type of conference. But after he got a couple games under his belt, the last 4 games, 3, 4 games of the season, he's like a totally different player. I mean, he's not big. He's
What?
only about 6 feet, maybe 6'1" at the most. But he's quick. He's fast. He's got a strong arm. He sees the field good. He's got a chance to become a pretty good quarterback, but he needs one more year of that top competition.
100%. Now, Fernando Mendoza did have a really good game. I think 16 for 18 completion percentage. He was top of the charts, controlling the game, making some big plays, and they blew Alabama out of the water. And we're the only home team that actually got a win in round two of this entire playoff. So good to see for Indiana. I mean, that was probably the biggest game for IU in last 20 to
Like
50 years.
forever.
Yeah, forever, pretty much. Yeah, biggest game ever. But what I was happy to see, and what I'm scouting for the Bears is that defensive line talent, and it didn't disappoint yesterday. Miami's defensive line, you got Ruben Bain Jr., you got Akeem Mesidor. Ohio State's got Kenyatta Jackson and Caden McDonald. But then you get to that Texas
They got
Tech game.
what's his name? Arneal too, the linebacker who doubles as an
Yep.
edge.
Yeah. Oh, Arvell Reese. I just think he's going to
Yeah.
go top 10. But then you get over to that Texas Tech game. That entire defensive line, the D tackle, they have Romello Height, they have David Bailey, and I think David Bailey. I was kind of hoping he didn't have go off because I think he's played himself into being a top 10, top 15 pick at least. So he's probably not in the Bears' radar. But a couple of other guys there who could potentially be. Two of them on the Oregon defensive line, Amari Washington, Mateo Ugalele. and I really like Romello Height, the other D end from Texas Tech. So there's a lot of guys that Ryan Poles was scouting yesterday, and they had a ton of good games. All of those guys looked good, and I think this year's crop of defensive ends and defensive tackles is pretty talented. The Bears should have an opportunity to still get a really good player, even if we draft late in the first round.
Well, it's a foregone conclusion they're drafting late because of all the games that they've won. So, I mean, they're going to be drafted on the wrong side of 20. That's a lot. So,
well, still about 12 pick difference here. It could be. We could be
true,
picking early 20s, could be picking back at 32.
true.
Hopefully, that's what we're looking for.
But it's I'm not as high on the edge class, but in all honesty, I haven't done with a lot of these guys the second half of the season. Like I'm not as high on Bain as some people are. I like Bain.
Oh, I like Ruben Bain.
There's a lot of people saying his arms measure real short. I have not seen an arm measurement. He's got very muscular arms, which make him look short, but he may have 32 and a half, 33-inch arms, which would be fine.
In the NFL, yeah, that's fine. Especially, I mean, with how he explodes off the line of scrimmage. There was one of those plays yesterday where he jumped off the line so fast. I initially thought he was offsides watching
Oh,
it
he's got
live.
some initial quickness now. I just think his body doesn't look like an edge body. He looks like a 3 technique.
Yep. And as far as penetrating defensive tackle, that was Texas Tech's defense. I think it was, is it Hunter? Hunter, I forget his name. He's the one, his name keeps escaping me. But he was getting off the line of scrimmage. He's good at stopping the run, but he's a guy who plays nose tackle and he can still get after quarterbacks. And I love to see that.
I think what the Bears need, though, and you may argue with this,
Lee Hunter
is a anchor guy. They got one, Billings, and that's it.
And he might not even, I mean, he could even be gone next
year. Yeah, he's out of contract. I'll tell you what, though. Yeah. I mean, he plays his ass off. That guy, snap to whistle, every down he's in the game, he plays hard. And I think he's well liked in the locker room. Coaches like him. Yeah, and he doesn't cost a lot of money. I'd be kind of surprised if he's not here, but they got to get at least 2 defensive tackles on top of an edge.
Mm. Yeah, and I think there's 2 defensive tackles there that I think kind of fit that billing, and he's one of them. Lee Hunter, he's the defensive tackle for Texas Tech. He's 6'4", 325. He's a big dude. But then also the Caden McDonald, the big defensive tackle from Ohio State, he might not have had as good of a game losing to Miami, but I think he also fits that bill. Both could be in play late first round, maybe into the second round. But I like both those guys. I think there is some talent at defensive tackle this year, and that's the Bears' biggest need heading into this offseason. I think one thing that's underrated is Ryan Poles has yet to draft anybody on the defensive side of the ball in round 1. I do think that changes this year. But a good transition here from the draft getting back to the Bears. Let's quickly touch on this because one of the things that could help us out in the draft going forward is if Ian Cunningham is able to land a general manager job for giving us those 2 extra third-round compensation picks. But Miami has now hired Troy Aikman to lead that search down there for a GM. Give me your thoughts on that. I know you want to talk about it.
Total head scratcher. And the reason being is what, besides being a broadcaster, what is his experience to be involved in a general manager search? Besides, there isn't any. He's never worked in a front office, never been part of it. He's been a broadcaster since the day after he retired. The only general manager he's ever worked with is Jerry Jones, who also happens to be the owner. So he hasn't worked with a real general manager. But then you look at it's Miami, and it's par for the course. That franchise has a history of making horrible decisions.
And now they're putting a guy who now I had a lot of respect for Troy Aikman earlier. Before the whole fiasco with Caleb Williams. I've always thought Troy was a good dude. Now, I do feel like he has a vendetta or something against Caleb Williams after listening to that broadcast earlier this year and what we've seen. I feel like he's not a fan of the Bears. He's not a fan of Caleb
No, he
Williams.
never has been. I mean, and that goes way back. He's all. If you one thing you notice about Troy Aikman, and I turn him off now. I won't even listen. But
I love that.
he doesn't do his homework, and the guys who have been around a long time, the analysts, they seldom do their homework. When they start off, they work their butts off, and they treat the game like they're playing quarterback, and they know what the other teams, they know what both teams are doing. They can see, like Tony Romo, perfect example. When he
I love
started
Tony
out,
Romo. Yeah.
when he started out, team could come to the line of scrimmage and he'd tell you what the play is based on the formation. Oh, here's what they're going to do, and they do it because
He does it.
he does his work. But Aikman just does a production meeting, doesn't do any film work, talks out of his ass, and he has a preconceived conviction and favorite going into a game. And
Yeah,
to
100%.
me, it's not even worth listening to. You went. Oh, there you go. You
Yeah,
went
I
away
was
for a
cut out.
second.
Yeah,
But
and I just think that's a tough situation there for the Dolphins. They're going to be looking for a new quarterback. They paid Tua all that money, and now they brought in Troy Aikman to lead the GM search. I'm glad I'm not a Dolphins fan. I'll tell you that much.
oh, I can't use the word I want to use, but it's a cluster. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's bad down there. Oh, I gotta address this question. Swifty, do you remember when you didn't like Caleb Williams? You know what I don't like is when people try to tell me things that are factually false. I have watched Caleb Williams since he was at Oklahoma and been a fan. Now, because I thought there was a possibility the Bears could potentially trade that number one pick for another haul, and it was never something that was 100%, but it's always until you draft a player, you got to you have to take a look at all of the avenues available. But I've always been a Caleb Williams fan. In fact, while people were in the process of telling me I didn't like him or I was a Justin Fields fan instead of a Bears fan, I watched every single snap Caleb took at USC and Oklahoma 4 months before we drafted him. So that's crazy, Scott. Get out of here with that. Um,
if there was a critic, it was me. And it wasn't on his talent.
mhm.
I had to, I had to write him up for people, and I had just said, this is Patrick Mahomes all over again as a talent. Then talking to people who made school calls. So, these are real NFL scouts and not area scouts, decision making people who made school calls. They were given some information that was a little concerning. And so there was some, for lack of a better term, character concerns. And not character that he was a bad guy, but it's like, was he selfish? How good of a teammate was he? Well, that turned out to be false information. But now you look at the, let's say, the Tyler Dunn story. Everything Tyler Dunn said was stuff that I heard, or everything that he wrote. So it was out there.
Well, and it also, I mean, when I broke down Caleb Williams' tape, there were concerns about his ability to play in schedule and offense and his tendency to want to play hero ball. And those have translated and carried over into the NFL. You saw it a lot last year with how many sacks he took. He would dance around in the pocket a little bit too much, and he would want to hold the ball and kind of play backyard football where you kind of just dance around the defenders, dance around in the pocket. And the greatest thing that's happened to Caleb Williams' career to me is us hiring Ben Johnson.
No
Because
question.
Ben has coached that out of him. He said, look, he's not coaching the playmaker out of Caleb Williams, but he's coaching the hero ball aspect and dancing around. He's much more decisive now where when he still makes guys miss at an insane rate. There was a stat a couple weeks ago that Caleb has faced, I think it was like 43 unblocked blitzers, just rushers coming straight at him. Zero of those guys have gotten sacks. They're 0 for 43 without being blocked. So Caleb is incredible at making guys miss and extending plays. Now, what he didn't
His
do in
feel for
college,
pass rushers is better than I've ever seen, and that's
it's
any
incredible.
quarterback at any time. I mean, he just got a sixth sense, an instinct that he feels guys, and he can make the right move to get out of it. And if you look at it, he's still holding on to the ball, but it's a false stat because I think he ranks either first or second in the league
Him and
in the
Brock
time.
Purdy are the top two at holding the
Yeah,
ball the longest.
holding the ball, but they're making plays. They're making
Yeah,
plays
and
with the extension, and the ability to extend a play with your feet is a huge trait for a quarterback to have, and a positive trait, not a
it
negative
is.
trait.
I mean, that's the key. If you look at who have been the best two quarterbacks in the NFL over the last 5 years, it's been Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen. What are one thing that both of those guys do extremely well? Extend plays. And it also puts an onus on the defense where instead of having to cover a guy for 2 or 3 seconds, you got to cover him longer because the quarterback can extend the play. And if you give up and let him get open, you can cost your team the game. So his ability, I think the biggest change with that has been he's more decisive now. After making a guy miss, instead of just kind of dancing around and trying to extend the play, he's more decisive. He's looking downfield and he's not scared to run it anymore. His legs have really been something that's really made this team better. He's picked up a lot of first downs. He's picked up a lot of extended a lot of drives by scrambling out of the pocket and going on big time runs. So I love that ability with Caleb.
He never ran a 40, so we don't have a time speed. But there are several GPS times, for lack of a better
Yeah.
term, that are well over 20 miles an hour, close to 21 miles an hour.
More than any other quarterback in football this year.
Right. So he can run. If he were to run a 40, he might not break 4.5, but he's going to be in the low 4.5s.
Hmm.
The dude can
He's
run,
got
and he's
underrated speed
strong.
for sure.
He is strong.
I mean, his strength is crazy. I think his ability to take hits and shed off the sacks, break out and not get sacked. That's kind of incredible. And I honestly really haven't seen it since. It reminds me of Ben Roethlisberger. I'd see Roethlisberger so many times when you watch Steelers tape.
Hmm.
There'd be guys hanging on his waist, and he just throwing the ball over him, like able to throw the ball even if he had two defenders on him. So you got to love that, and I think Caleb has some of that ability with him
Well,
too.
the other thing I like about Caleb, and that you don't see a lot of quarter, you see him do it, but not to the extent he is. He spends a lot of time in the weight room. He's built like a freaking running back.
He is. He is.
He's
He's
got
super
big
strong. He's
arms. He's
stout.
big through the chest. He's big in the legs. Very muscular. Very strong. Now, will that continue into his career? Who knows? But he is. He said, I know I got to do this to be able to play the game I want to play.
Now,
So,
and I think he's ending a lot of the talk about. Wait, my computer is running out of battery, but I have it plugged in. Hold on. Oh, it's not plugged in. I got a cable not plugged. Okay. I was like, wait a minute, computer's about to die. Okay, there we go. There we go. All right. Had to extend it there. But I think Caleb has ended the talk of us not having a franchise quarterback. I think he's proven to everyone that he is that guy and he's actually on the miss. Now I don't really care about the numbers, but there is one reason why I want him to hit that 4,000 yards Sunday. I just am tired of being the only franchise that doesn't have it. I'm tired of people talking about it. Once he gets that 4,000 yards, I don't think it's going to be a discussion anymore because then he's probably going to have multiple 4,000 yard seasons and it'll be in the past. But right now, sitting here today, I'm hoping it's the last time we ever have to say the Bears don't have a 4,000 yard passer in history and that we're the only franchise in the NFL with that distinction.
personally, and Ben pretty much said the same thing. I don't think he gives a darn. And
But did you hear what Caleb said about it though?
no, I did not. What did
No,
Caleb say?
Caleb was like, he said, I care for one reason, but basically the same thing. He said, look, because he came here to end the curse of the Bears. He came here to change
No,
things
I
in
get it. I
Chicago.
get it.
And when you're looking at that, one of the things that the media is going to continue to talk about and people outside of Chicago, they're always going to continue talking about that. So just like me, he wants that to stop. And if he can hit that 4,000 yards this weekend, now most people thought he was on pace to not be able to do it. He wasn't going to be able to do it. But after that big game against San Francisco last week, he only needs 270 yards.
Yeah, but
That's
that's a lot.
very doable.
270 might be about the fourth best game he's had this year.
Yeah.
And we're talking, what, January 4th is the date of that game. The weather is supposed to be high 20s, maybe mid 20s because it's a late afternoon kickoff. Not really a windy day. So the conditions should be favorable. But you look at last week in San Francisco, we're talking, it was in this high 60s during the day. It dropped down into the 50s during the night during the game. It was dry conditions. There wasn't any wind. So he had good conditions. Now you look at what he's had, and this is the reason people don't want to talk about this, but it's fact. The weather has a lot to do with why no Bears quarterback gets 4,000 yards. Look at the weather he has played in. You can go back to even the Philly game. It was cold and windy there. That was, day after Thanksgiving. And from then on, the best weather he had was San Francisco last week. And, oddly enough, he has his best game. Yeah. So, you get the new Dome Stadium built, you're going to have 4,000, 4,300 yards every year because you're not going to be dealing with that. I mentioned this once before, and I've done it with Aldo a few times. It's a good coach, former NFL coordinator, who's coached in both places, Cleveland and Chicago. And he said the two hardest places to play, stadiums to play at, are the Cleveland Stadium and Soldier Field. And the reason being is they're the only two stadiums in the league that sit on the lake.
Yeah, and that's true. I mean, no, I will. No, Green Bay is obviously going to be colder. It's further up north.
And Buffalo's
it doesn't have that
weather.
wind.
Buffalo's got weather too, but Buffalo's 8-9 miles from Lake Erie, the stadium. So, but it's the effect the lake has. And Soldier Field literally sits on the lake. The Cleveland Stadium sits on the lake, and it has an effect.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, no, but still, when you look at it, you have other places where it's cold. Cleveland, it's cold and it's on the lake. Buffalo, it's cold. Green Bay, it's cold.
I tell you what, having lived in Buffalo for 50 years, it's colder here in Chicago.
Oh,
it's a lot colder in Chicago.
Greg's got the experience. I've personally never been to Buffalo, so I can't.
Buffalo gets the snow, especially where that stadium is. The stadium, they got what they call the snow belt, and you got until Lake Erie freezes, and Lake Erie is one of the few Great Lakes that totally freezes over because it's the shallowest of all the Great Lakes. But the way the weather fronts come across from west to east and come off the lake, there's a snow belt. Where my daughter lives in Tonawanda, which is a north suburb, there are several times where she will get no snow or maybe an inch. And my daughter, who lives in South Buffalo, maybe 15 miles away, but in what they call the snow belt, she'll get a foot the same day. Oh, yeah. And it's crazy. And that's where that stadium is. That stadium is another 5 miles further south than where my daughter lives.
Now, we have Detroit coming up this week. We have Don Burr in the chat talking about the Lions, Detroit versus everyone. Look at this. Okay. So how do you feel about the Lions right now? A team that people had picked as a Super Bowl favorite coming into the year. They lost both their coordinators. Now, I expected,
and they lost other coaches too.
Yep. Now, I called it in the preseason, and before the season started. I thought they were going to have a step back. Now, did I see them not making the playoffs? I did not. I thought they would probably be a wild card team. But Detroit has fallen down, and Jared Goff's only going to be making more money and getting older. And the Bears and Packers, I think, are both going to be getting better. If the Vikings can figure out their quarterback situation, they're going to be better as well. I think Detroit could be in for some bad news going forward. I think they're a team that could fall off the map a little bit.
I don't know if they're quite as bad as you're pointing out because they got. I mean, Goff isn't that old. He's good, but Goff can't do is take a hit.
Yeah.
You hit Goff a couple times and it's
And
all
he's
over.
not mobile.
Yeah, but I mean, I didn't see any of that game last week, but they turned the ball over like 6 times,
That's some
which is
Goff has had a propensity, or he's done that a lot over his career. He's had some 4 and 5 interception games. If you can get pressure on Goff, then he honestly has the capability to fold and throw a game. So,
Sean McVay got rid of him for one reason. He wasn't good enough to win the big games.
you know, and that's what there's those quarterbacks. And that's exactly what I said about Goff. I think he's a guy you can win with, but you're not going to win because of Jared Goff. Whereas Caleb has already shown you can win because of Caleb Williams.
No
He's shown
question.
that already in year two, his first year with Ben Johnson. I only expect them to get better going forward. So this is a big statement game, I think, for Ben Johnson. He wants to get back at what Detroit did to him. And I think we're going to come out here. We could see some special stuff on Sunday. I do want to get that 4,000 yards out of the way just to get it done and go into the playoffs with a win. How do you feel about that going against Green Bay again in the playoffs? Because right now
Well,
that's the
the
most
one thing I
likely
want to say
scenario.
about Detroit first, going back, is Bigsy said this morning on the score, and I didn't listen to it, but I saw the clip on X, and this is something I didn't know. So he had dug up the stats.
Ooh, okay.
In like the 3 previous games before Minnesota last week, Minnesota was playing with a rookie, undrafted free agent at quarterback and still won against
Yeah.
Detroit. But before that, teams were throwing for about 330, 340 a game against Detroit. Detroit's secondary is totally banged up. Okay, the best players are out. They're not getting a pass rush. The defense itself just has not played good. They've lost, what, 3 in a row right now? Okay, they're out of the playoffs. What team's going to show up? Are these guys, my personal opinion is some guys are going to play hard and other guys are going to like screw it. It's the last game, especially guys who are going to be free agents. They don't want to get hurt.
And that's one. I think the Bears locker room, they're in such a good position right now. Ben Johnson has these guys playing hard. I love that. And when we move on to the Packers, who is most likely going to be our wild card playoff matchup, I did want to touch on one player because Trayvon Diggs, he was released. The Packers claimed him. Now, he doesn't have any guaranteed money on his contract, but I thought it was a stupid decision by the Packers
Awful.
to claim him off waivers when they could have let him go unclaimed and
They
then
could,
worked out a deal with him.
I'm glad you brought it up. Number one, you could have signed it. They were the only team that claimed him.
Only team.
Okay.
Yep, that's already been announced too. Yep.
Okay. So they could have just let it go, signed him for the minimum. It would have cost them not even $100,000. And now it's costing them $500,000, which is $500,000 off the hook for the Dallas Cowboys because he's a vested vet. He was getting 500 one way or the other, but Green Bay could have gotten away with just paying him 100 and not have that contract on the books going into the off season. Now, how about this? They were under the projected cap before they claimed that contract. They are now $7 million over the cap with that contract on the books.
Yeah, it's a tough one for me because people will say the counterpoint here is yes, there's no guaranteed money on the contract, so they can get out of it in the off season. But the thing is,
there's no question, but it's still on the books.
Yeah, if you wanted Diggs on the roster that bad, and they're talking about pairing Diggs back up with Micah Parsons and this and that, if any of that was true, you would have not. You're not going to pay him that huge. He's due like 18 million next year, 20+ million the year after.
Yeah,
and it's
no,
a
the
3
contract's
year.
enormous.
It's
There's
huge. I
3
think
years
he's one of
left
the
on
most overpaid players in the league. So why claim him if you're just going to cut him in the offseason? To me, it makes no sense. I don't
I,
know what
I
they're
thought,
doing
I
up
thought it was
there.
a horrible. I didn't think it was a horrible move bringing him in. Horrible move claiming him.
a horrible move keeping that contract on the books when
Right.
if he was interested, I think the only reason they had to claim him is because they thought there's no way they were going to be able to sign him if he cleared waivers. And if that's the case, what's the point? Because you're going to bring the guy in for 2 weeks. Maybe you're trying. I know they had Nate Hobbs get hurt, and they
But
have some
he's not
problems at corner.
100% healthy.
Yep. And then we remember when Dallas played Chicago this year, Rome Odunze burnt Trayvon Diggs bad for a touchdown. Hopefully, Rome is coming back for the playoffs as well. That's something I'd like to see. As far as we know right now, it looks like Rome will not play this weekend as he has not practiced yet this week. But Ben
So
Johnson did
we'll know
say,
that in a few hours. Probably
yep,
another hour from now, we'll know that.
right when we end. I think last week the injury report came out right when we ended, but that's how it goes sometimes. Oh, let's see. Yeah, I mean, good point by Keith here. I think the biggest thing about this weekend, we got to come out of this Detroit game healthy and be ready for the playoffs because
Okay,
playoff football.
here's another point too. I wanted to bring up the bigs he brought up on the score. So he goes, and it was just totally hypothetical. They were in the fourth quarter. You see that Washington is handily beating Philadelphia, so they're going to win the game. Then it doesn't matter what the Bears do. They got number two. Okay. Caleb, and then he phrased it this way: Caleb's got 240 yards. Do you pull him out of the game to rest him, or do you keep him in the game? And right away he goes, "What if Aiden Hutchinson came in just because you kept him in a series too long and knocked the bejesus out of him, and then you lose him?"
I don't even want to think that, Greg. I don't even want to put that in.
I know that, but it's a good question that Bigsy put out there when he was on and he didn't have an answer. Obviously, that's a decision that Ben would made. But if you listen to what he said, Ben said, he just said it's a number. He's going to do what he thinks is right for the team, not necessarily what's right for the record book.
I think, and Creighton says it here, can't play scared. I think Ben Johnson's mindset would be that he leaves Caleb in. If Caleb wants to get that record, he would just leave him in. That's a tough situation, though. I think also if we somehow get a 20-point lead heading into the second half, it's another opportunity to get Tyson Bagent some reps just for that worst case scenario. You want the backup to have some reps just in case something happens and you have to bring him in. But I do want that 4,000 yards. It's something, all season I could have cared less about it. It's just the fact that we're so close.
Well, 270 is no gimme game. That's still a lot of yards to throw for.
But we know he can do it. Since he threw 60 yards more than that last week against a 49ers defense that I think is better than what the Lions are putting out there right now. Now, it was a bit warmer down in San Francisco, but it was at night. I just looked it up. It's actually around noon on Sunday. It should be 30 to 32 degrees is what.
Right. So by kickoff but it's a 3:30 game, or 3:25 game. So it's going to be probably mid-20s.
Yep, 100%. Now, this is a good point by T. White here. If Caleb could potentially get them 4,000 yards by halftime.
Well, yeah, and anything's possible, but I don't. How many times has he thrown for over 200 in the first half? I don't know if he has. 100%. He might have done it once, but.
Yeah, someone else talked about the haul. Look, Caleb Williams was the haul. Caleb Williams and Rome Odunze in the same draft. Honestly, probably the best draft I remember in my life as a Bears fan. There's been a lot of other good ones, but starting it off with those two guys in the top 10 was crazy. But speaking about the draft, what about this year's rookie class? Luther Burden, Colston Loveland, Ozzie Trapillo, Kyle Monungai, and that's without even mentioning Jamar Turner, who I like, and Luke Newman, who I like. There's some good players in this class, man.
Luke had a play, the one almost a half, when Jackson got hurt in one of the games. He got hurt like in the first series. Luke Newman came in, and the offensive line didn't miss a beat in that particular game. And then he got hurt like the next week. He hurt his foot and he had to sit out 4 weeks. But now he's back. He's just a rough, tough football player and a good
I
football
like
player. Yeah.
I like him a lot. I
The
think
only
he's gonna be
reason
good.
he got drafted as late as he did was because he got short arms. Got 31-inch arms. But you can get away with that playing inside.
Yep. And someone Rich says it here. The one other thing we could look for this week, even without the 4,000 yards, Caleb only needs, I believe it's like 107 total passing yards to break the all-time Bears record
Right.
single season. I think I
It's
wrote it down
he
earlier.
needs
I think he needs
it
about
needs
108 yards.
30, 38 something is what the record is.
38, 38 by Eric Kramer.
Right.
That's the most ever. And I think he's right now he's at 37-30. So he needs 108 yards to break the Bears all-time record. I think that one, yeah, I think Kramer's going to be saying bye to that this week. And even if he doesn't hit 4,000, he can still make his mark on the history books. And doing that in year 2 with the Bears and his first year with Ben Johnson, it just points to how much potential this kid has. And this is with all the weapons we have on this offense, too. I think Luther Burden's going to get better. Rome Odunze has been banged up all year. Holston Loveland is just scratching the surface. There's so much potential for this offense going forward.
You know what I want to see happen, and nobody talks about it. But to me, it's a meaningful stat. Monongai needs 31 yards for 800.
Oh,
And you'd have a
800.
1,000-yard rusher and an 800-yard rusher on the same team. That ain't easy.
Hey, I'd love to see Monongai get that. Monongai's a guy who's become one of my favorite players on this team. It's hard not to root for a guy like Monongai. How
Did
hard
he
he
play?
runs.
If he had played early in the season, he might
be
be
close to
pushing 1,000 right now.
We could have 2 of them, and that would have been
Yeah.
awesome. I mean, hey, maybe you rest Swift a little bit this week and you try to get Monongai a crazy 200+ yard game. You never know. It's not out of the realm of possibility. Probably
Well, yeah,
highly
he
unlikely.
needs almost the same yardage as Caleb does.
Yeah. Hey, you never know. You never know with Monongai. I love his running style, man. He's a fan favorite and a guy who I love that he's a Bear, man. I love watching him run. Now I will say, you remember that he had one run last week against the 49ers in the fourth quarter where he's one-on-one with a safety and he could have made the guy miss and he tried to run him over and got tackled. And that was one where I love his mentality where he wants to establish that physicality and he wants to run guys over, but he's also can make people miss. And I felt like he should have made that guy miss and score the touchdown on that one.
Yeah, I know the player you're talking about, and he did lower his shoulder and try to run right through the guy. And the good part about the play, and I don't disagree with what you're saying though, is that he won the contact battle. He knocked the tackler back and still got positive yards.
And I just love and he was asked about it by Herb Howard in the locker room a few weeks back. I think it was in that Packer game where he ran into the guy and kind of chipped something off his helmet. And he said, "Look, Monongai, you're a guy who you don't look to make people miss a lot of times. You want to establish that dominance." And he talked about how being a smaller guy, he's always doubted. Players on the other team doubt him, media guys doubt him, and he wants to let people know that hey, he's not soft, he's not sweet, and he's gonna run with as much physicality as anyone out there. So I love that. But when you're one on one with a safety in the open field, make him miss, Monongai. Just
No,
make him miss.
I know what you're saying there, and he probably could have, and if he didn't score, he might have got another 10, 12 yards.
Yeah, it was a free lane there, but the good news here for everyone, guys, no matter what happens this weekend, no matter what happens with Caleb Williams and the record, no matter what happens with anything, win or loss, 2 seed or 3 seed, we will be playing a home game in the playoffs next week at Soldier Field. And it's been a long time coming, man. Since I've had this channel, we have not had a playoff game. So this will be the first time covering a playoff game. And I couldn't be more excited about this. Bears in the playoffs and have a chance to I think this is a team that could potentially go on a big time run. I think the playoffs are wide open. There's no Patrick Mahomes. There's no Joe Burrow. There might not be a Lamar Jackson either. So it's a little bit more open than it has been in a long time. No
Yeah,
Jared
no,
Goff and the
no
Lions
question.
either.
But the difference between being a 2 and a 3 is you get the 2 seed, you beat Green Bay, and they will. Then you got a home game the next week.
Yep, and a home game against it would probably be the Eagles
Well,
or one of the NFC West teams.
right.
Looking a little bit
Unless
further down the road.
the South team would automatically be they're going to be at the bottom of the seeding. They're going to automatically be playing the top seed unless
One seed, yeah.
and the top seed has a bye. So
Yep. So it's going to be it's playoff football. It's Chicago, and I believe this team is actually built really well for a playoff run with how well we run the ball, the turnovers we get on defense, and our ability to win games, close games late. I think all three of those add up to a team that can win in the playoffs. And I've said it before, and I'll say it again. I don't think anyone in the NFC wants to face this team in the playoffs.
I think I agree with you on that one. The Bears may give up yards on defense, but they're a tough physical team.
They're tough. Our biggest issue right now is we need to get after quarterbacks better. We can't let quarterbacks just set back in the pocket and dissect our defense. We have to be more aggressive. And I'm hoping Dennis Allen, hey, if we have to blitz more, we have to blitz more. If that opens up for more big plays, oh well. Because honestly, when they set back in the pocket and we don't get a pass rush, they usually get big plays anyway.
Well, we can say this though, and I think this is a fair statement, Swifty. Had it been any other quarterback than what San Francisco had playing last week, they might have had 4 or 5 sacks.
Yeah. Brock Purdy did some. I mean, that one play where he ran to the left.
Purdy is one quick dude, and
oh my goodness!
Put it this way: if that was Jared Goff, he would have been. He would have gotten half killed. Yeah. So that they're getting pressures. They're not finishing.
Yeah, and that one play that Purdy did, that was honestly one of the better plays I've seen. Where he had Booker chasing him and Andrew Billings, and he kind of sidestepped, juked them both, and then he had already ran for 2 touchdowns. So the secondary is coming up to stop him, and he just kind of whips it to the side to Kyle Juszczyk over there in the corner. That play was insane, and I got to give him props for that one. But if he doesn't make that play, it's a different game, and we probably win the game. So
well, they scored 2, and really it was the same play, different sides. Is that he was faking the handoff and then runs, an option play, and he runs by himself to the outside. That's up to the defensive backs and your edge players to stop that. Yep. And your break and contain when he's able to run freely into the end zone like that. That's poor play on the outside from the Bears defense or any defense. When you allow that, you got to play contain. You got to stay within the right area without over pursuing early on.
Mm-hmm. And a couple questions here. Before we go, I will answer a couple of questions we have in chat. Someone asked, do you think Josh McDaniels is better than Ben Johnson?
No.
I don't either. And I think DDM answered it for me. Josh McDaniels is good, especially as a play caller on offense. As a head coach, I don't like him.
Yeah, he failed not once, but twice as a head coach.
He is, yeah. When you failed twice, and what Ben Johnson has been able to do this year, how much Detroit's been hurt, everything that Ben Johnson has done here. I admit it, even when Ben Johnson was my favorite candidate to be a head coach by far this offseason, but I still had a question about him. I knew he was a great play caller. I didn't know what he looked like as a leader of men or how he'd get this locker room to come together.
Yeah, how he'd handle a whole team.
I'm so impressed with what he's been able to do and how he's gotten these guys to play hard, how he's gotten them to believe in each other, and what he's done for Caleb Williams' development. Just an absolute home run hire for the Bears, and it makes the future of this franchise even brighter.
No question.
Someone else said, comment from Jim Body here. He said he thinks this year's draft is better than 2025. I think the 2026 class I'm actually a little bit down on. It's that 2027 class. You look into the future, they're going to have Arch Manning, Jeremiah Smith, all those youngsters. That class is one to watch out for. I think 2027 is
Yeah,
going to be a
it's
crazy year.
really too early to say how good this class is going to be because reality is we don't know who's going to be in the draft, and we're not
Yep.
going to know for another 3 weeks. So
But
until the underclassmen all declare, then and with the case of the guys playing in the national championship game, they get a few extra days to declare. Then then we'll find out who's actually in the draft. I've already seen some decent names say they're going back to school. And why are they going
yep.
back to school? Because they're getting paid.
Yeah, I mean, there's that NIL has changed things as well. The NIL has given some of these college athletes more reason to stay another year. Oh, my computer kind of lagging there for a second.
Yeah,
It's
it did
giving
for a
guys a
second.
yeah, it's giving guys reason to stay for another year, and they're making that big time money in college even. Great point by Keith here. He said he does not want to play the Seahawks and Rams both to get to the Super Bowl. We kind of feel the same way, but getting a rematch against the 49ers, that is something that I might like to see.
Well, San Francisco's got to beat Seattle for that to happen.
Mhm.
Well,
We'll see
no,
how
I
that's a
take that
big
back. To play them in San Francisco, they have to
mhm.
beat. You could end up playing, depending how games go, you could end up playing them here.
I honestly, I think I'd rather this. That's tough. Would you rather? That's one question we could ask before here. When it comes down to it, and if the Bears are a team that's going to move past the first round, like you expect, if we play against Green Bay, who would you rather see in a potential NFC Championship matchup on the road against Seattle or on the road a rematch in San Francisco?
You know, I don't think I can answer it yet. The main reason is I don't know who's playing who next week.
Yeah,
And so and we're going to know that by how the games finish out this weekend. Then you can figure out okay if because they don't do a reseeding.
nope. But I mean, if they're the one seed, I mean, they're the only team.
No, but I mean,
Assuming they win, yeah,
I was just thinking of it. The the team that wins the
it's the one seed.
NFC South is going to be
Yeah,
the 4 seed, even though they're going to have a worse
yep.
record than 5, 6, and 7. They're going to be the 4 seed. And so let's say, well, if they win, they're automatically going to play in the second week in the divisional round. They're automatically going to play the 1 seed.
Not true.
But
Not well. If one of the if one of the wild card teams, like say the 49ers and Rams, will be seeds 5 and 6,
that's what
right?
you're right. You're right.
If one of them beat the 3 seed, which would be the Eagles, then they would go play a rematch against the 1 seed, and
And the
we could
Bears would play
potentially get.
The NFC South. So it's
Then
really
that would be my dream scenario. Play the Packers in round one, and get the Bucks or Panthers in round two.
well,
Bring
yeah,
that on, please.
you're getting a South team up here in the cold and snow.
And then even though we're not the 1 seed, we would be playing the team with the worst record, even though
Yep,
they're a higher seed. Now I would
yep,
take that all day. Now I will
absolutely.
say, I think we proved last week that we can beat the 49ers. Now we didn't beat them, but we were inches away, one play away, 10 more seconds on the clock, and we win that game. And we proved that we can play with them and can beat them. The Seahawks are a different monster. We haven't really seen that yet, but I do think Brock Purdy's a better quarterback than Sam Darnold.
Oh, there's no question about that. And Kyle Shanahan is, by himself as good as Ben is. Shanahan's better right now.
And that's something else to watch for this week as Bears fans. I believe that's the Sunday night football game, but watch the Seahawks and 49ers this
No,
week.
that game's tomorrow. It's a
Oh, it's
Saturday game.
tomorrow. It's on
Yeah.
Saturday. Ooh, I was actually thinking it was Sunday night. So that gives
No,
us
it's
something to watch
Saturday.
tomorrow. 49ers, Seahawks. Find out who that 1 seed is. Scout our potential opponents and get ready to play the Lions on Sunday. I'm excited for this one, Greg. Any final thoughts for today?
Nope. Go Bears.
Go Bears. Playoff football's on the way, guys. I appreciate everyone who watches. We love you guys. We're ready for playoff football. We should be back for another show next Friday. Me and Greg will be breaking down a playoff matchup in Chicago. I couldn't be more
It'll be
excited.
round 3, Green Bay, Chicago.
Round 3, baby. Hit the like button, hype up the video, and bear down, guys. We appreciate everyone